You used my money to buy a house, and your wife plus her mother are moving in? So I am sitting alone at the small kitchen table, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence while the late afternoon light slants through the window. In my hands are the papers that changed everything. They are crisp, official, heavy with meaning, stamped and signed, confirming the transfer of ownership for the house my son bought with my life savings. My fingers tremble as I hold them, not from anger, but from a sadness so deep it feels like my chest is collapsing inward. I have lived nearly 7 decades, and I have never known a pain that sits this quietly while tearing so loudly inside me. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. The bedroom door is slightly open, just enough for sound to travel. I had not meant to listen, had not meant to overhear anything at all, but voices carry easily in this apartment. Jamal's voice reaches me first, warm and animated, the same voice that once begged me to read one more bedtime story, the same laugh that used to echo through our tiny living room when he was a child. Now it carries excitement, plans, and confidence. He is talking to his wife, Kesha, his tone light and assured in a way I realize he has never sounded when speaking to me. Yeah, baby, everything's set, he says. The papers came today. It's official. The house is ours. He laughs, a sound that once meant joy to me and now lands like a weight on my chest. I hear Kesha murmur something back, her voice low but pleased. Jamal continues, and I find myself leaning slightly forward in my chair without realizing it, as though my body already knows what my heart is about to hear. Mom's going to be so happy, he says. Your mama's finally getting that room with the garden view she always wanted. My breath catches. For a moment, the room spins gently, as if I might faint. Miss Cynthia. His mother-in-law. Kesha's mother. She will be living in the house I paid for. The house I believed was meant to be our shared future. The house where I imagined myself waking up to birdsong, watching my grandchildren play in the yard, growing old surrounded by family instead of walls. And my mom. I whisper to the empty room, my voice barely existing. What about me? I keep listening, my heart pounding so hard I'm afraid they'll hear it through the walls. Nah, Jamal says easily. We talked about that. She's fine where she is. You know how she can be. How she can be. The words land softly but leave bruises. I hear Kesha agree, her voice calm and practical, discussing me as if I am a logistical issue, not a person. It is better this way, they decide. More peaceful. Better for the kids. Better for the family. Their family. The phrase repeats itself in my mind. A real family. I am not included. I close my eyes, gripping the edge of the table as memories rise uninvited. 6 months ago, Jamal sat at this very table, elbows resting where the mail now lies scattered. He wore that familiar expression, the one he's had since childhood whenever he wanted something badly. He talked about dreams then. About the house, the neighborhood, the future he wanted to give his children. He spoke about stability, about roots, about doing better than the generation before him. I just need a little help, Mama, he said, voice gentle, almost apologetic. Just 20,000. I'll pay you back. 2 years, I promise. And of course, you'll always have a place with us. Always have a place. I had believed him. I wrote the words down that night, my hands shaking with excitement instead of sorrow. I told myself this was what all the sacrifices had been for. All the overtime hours. All the missed vacations. All the small joys I denied myself so my son could have a better life. Now, standing in my own kitchen, listening to my exclusion being planned so casually, I realize how easily hope can be mistaken for truth. Rain begins to fall outside, streaking the window in thin, trembling lines. I watch it for a moment, refusing to let myself cry. I have cried enough in my life. I worked 25 years in an office where no one ever learned my dreams or my favorite color. I saved every spare dollar, bought discounted clothes, packed lunches when others ordered out, also I would never be a burden. And yet here I am, categorized as one anyway. Jamal's footsteps move closer. I sit quickly, pick up the electric bill, and pretend to read it as he enters the kitchen. He greets me with a smile, kisses my forehead, thanks me again for everything I've done. The affection feels rehearsed now, disconnected from the reality I just overheard. When he leaves, the apartment feels colder. The papers sit on the table like an accusation. I fold them carefully and place them in the drawer with my bills and prescriptions, adding them to the quiet archive of my life. But something inside me shifts. The sadness settles into something sharper, clearer, more focused. That night, sleep refuses to come. I stare at the ceiling, counting regrets instead of sheep. I think about every dollar I gave, every boundary I failed to set, every moment I told myself love meant endurance. By morning, exhaustion has turned into resolve. I wake early and sit at the table with my old notebook. Instead of expenses, I write history. Every loan, every emergency, every temporary help that became permanent. The numbers climb higher than I expected, until the total leaves me dizzy. $48,000. Nearly $50,000. A lifetime of sacrifice condensed into a single figure that now feels meaningless in their world. I open the box in my closet where my most important documents live. Birth certificates. Insurance papers. My will. Everything I once believed defined my legacy. 3 years ago, I signed it all over to Jamal without hesitation. He was my only child. My reason for living. Or so I thought. The phone rings. Jamal again. He asks for more money, as if nothing has changed. As if he hasn't already taken everything that mattered. Something inside me hardens, not with cruelty, but with clarity. I tell him I need time. I hang up before he can protest. I turn on my old computer and log into my bank account. The number staring back at me is smaller than it should be. Smaller than safe. Smaller than fair. Fear flickers, but it doesn't win. I call the bank and begin reclaiming control, one decision at a time. When I hang up, the apartment feels different. Quieter. Stronger. For the first time in years, I am not reacting. I am choosing. And I know this is only the beginning. The morning light looks different when you wake up knowing something fundamental has shifted. It doesn't soften the room the way it used to. It sharpens it. I sit at the edge of my bed for a long time before standing, listening to the quiet hum of the building waking up around me. Someone runs water down the hall. A door closes. Life continues, indifferent to the fracture that opened inside me overnight. I move through my routine slowly, deliberately, as if every action needs to be relearned. Coffee tastes stronger than usual. The cup feels heavier in my hand. I notice things I once ignored, the crack in the countertop, the loose thread on my sleeve, the faint ache in my knees when I stand too long. These are not new things. They are simply no longer drowned out by worry for others. I return to the notebook at the kitchen table. The numbers stare back at me. $48,300. I trace the total with my finger, not to torture myself, but to make it real. For years, I told myself that money given to family was never truly lost. That belief had been my shield, my excuse, my blindfold. Now it feels like a lie I helped construct. I think of the used car Jamal bought, the one that broke down 6 months later. I paid for the transmission without question. I think of the school expenses, the uniforms, the endless supply lists that somehow always cost more than expected. I think of the credit card debt I covered so they could breathe again. Each time, Jamal hugged me and promised things would be different. Each time, I believed him. I close the notebook and press my palms flat against the table, grounding myself. Regret is a useless companion. What matters now is what comes next. The phone rings mid-morning. I let it ring until the sound stops. It rings again. And again. I already know who it is. Jamal does not call this often unless he wants something. That realization lands quietly but firmly. Even now, after everything I've overheard, my instinct is to answer, to smooth things over, to make him comfortable. I force myself to sit still. The silence that follows is unsettling but also strangely peaceful. For once, no one is demanding anything of me. By noon, hunger reminds me that I exist independently of anyone else's needs. I make myself lunch and eat at the table, chewing slowly, tasting each bite. It feels almost rebellious to eat without rushing, without worrying about someone else's schedule. In the afternoon, I gather documents from the shoebox in my closet and spread them across the bed. My will sits at the center, neat and official. I read it carefully, line by line, seeing it now with different eyes. Every asset, every possession, every piece of my life is assigned to Jamal. There are no conditions, no safeguards, no acknowledgement of how one-sided our relationship has become. It is a document written by a woman who believed love was enough. I fold it carefully and place it back in the box, not with reverence, but with resolve. That evening, Jamal calls again. This time I answer. "Mama," he says, relief flooding his voice. "I was worried. You scared me." I almost laugh at the irony. "I needed time," I told him calmly. "For what?" he asks. "This is all getting blown out of proportion. We just need that 3,000 so we can move forward." Move forward. Always forward. Never back. Never looking at who gets left behind. "I don't have an answer for you yet," I say. There is a pause, then irritation creeps into his tone. "You've never hesitated before." "I know," I replied. "That's part of the problem." He doesn't respond to that. Instead, he sighs heavily, as if I am exhausting him. Kesha's stressed. The kids are excited. This is supposed to be a happy time. And where do I fit into that happiness? I ask quietly. Another pause. Longer this time. "Mama, why are you making this difficult?" The question lands harder than any accusation. Difficult. I end the call soon after, my hands steady as I set the phone down. For the first time, I do not feel guilty. The next 2 days pass in a blur of unanswered calls and unreturned messages. Jamal leaves voicemails ranging from concern to frustration. Kesha begins calling too, her voice carefully composed, layered with politeness and pressure. I listen to none of them in full. I already know what they will say. They need me to return to the role I played so well, the reliable, silent giver. Instead, I walk. I clean. I think. I sit by the window and watch the world continue without my participation. And slowly, clarity settles in. On the third morning, I turned my phone off completely. With the quiet comes memory. I remember Jamal as a little boy, clinging to my leg on his first day of school. I remember the nights I stayed up sewing costumes, the mornings I skipped breakfast so he could eat. I remember promising myself that everything I did was worth it if he grew up safe and happy. He did grow up safe. He grew up comfortable. Somewhere along the way, he also grew entitled. The realization doesn't make me hate him. It makes me understand him. And understanding, I am learning, does not require surrender. I turn my phone back on Wednesday morning to a flood of missed calls and messages. One message stops me cold. It's from my grandson, written in clumsy spelling, asking if I am sick. Jamal told him I was. Something inside me hardens again. Not anger. Protection. I dress carefully that day, choosing clothes that make me feel composed. I walk to the bank with steady steps, my back straighter than it's been in years. The woman who greets me is professional and kind. She explains my options patiently, never once questioning my decisions. For the first time in a long time, I feel seen without being judged. When I leave the bank, the air feels lighter. I have made changes that cannot be undone easily. That knowledge brings relief. Later, I sat in a small diner and ate a meal I didn't justify to anyone. I sip wine slowly, savoring the unfamiliar freedom of indulgence without apology. I watch people live their lives, independent and imperfect, and realize I have been denying myself that same right. My phone vibrates. Jamal is coming over. He is not asking. I feel no fear, only readiness. I return home and sit by the window, waiting. The knock comes exactly on time, firm and impatient. When I open the door, Jamal stands there with Kesha behind him, both wearing concern like a costume. They speak first. I listen. And for the first time in my life, I do not rush to reassure them. I let the silence do the work. They sit across from me in the living room, Jamal on the edge of the sofa, Kesha beside him with her purse clutched tightly in her lap. I remain standing for a moment, not out of superiority, but because I need to feel the floor beneath my feet. This is my apartment. My space. The only place in the world that has never belonged to anyone else. I take my time before sitting down, and in that small pause, I sense their discomfort. They are not used to waiting for me. Mama, Jamal begins, his voice soft, almost rehearsed. We've been really worried about you. I nod once. I know. You haven't been answering your phone, Kesha adds carefully. That's not like you. No, I say. It isn't. They exchange a glance, one I have seen many times before. The silent conversation that excludes me while happening directly in front of me. This time, I noticed it fully. We just want to understand what's going on, Jamal says. If we did something wrong, you should tell us. I look at him then, really look at him. At the lines around his eyes, the faint impatience behind his concern. He is no longer the boy I raised, but he is still my son. That truth makes what I say next both harder and easier. You already know what you did, I tell him. You just didn't expect me to hear it. The color drains from his face. Kesha stiffens beside him. You were listening? Jamal asks. I wasn't trying to, I replied. But yes. I heard enough. Silence stretches between us, thick and heavy. I let it linger. I have spent a lifetime filling uncomfortable silences for others. I am done doing that. Mama, you misunderstood, Kesha says quickly. We were just talking through possibilities. Nothing was decided. You decided I wasn't part of your real family, I say calmly. That sounded very decided to me. Jamal rubs his hands together, a nervous habit he's had since childhood. We didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? I ask. Neither of them answers. The truth doesn't need elaboration. It is already sitting in the room with us. I didn't come here to fight, Jamal says after a moment. We just need to move forward. Forward again. Always forward. I am moving forward, I say. Just not in the direction you expected. Kesha's voice tightens. Is this about money? Yes, I replied. And no. Jamal exhales sharply. Mama, we're not trying to use you. I tilt my head slightly. Then what would you call it? His mouth opens, then closes. I see the moment when he realizes there is no answer that won't incriminate him. I've spent the last few days reviewing my finances. I continue. Not just the 20,000. All of it. Every dollar I've given you over the years. Jamal looks away. It adds up to more than $48,000, I say. Did you know that? I didn't keep track, he mutters. I did, I say. Finally. Kesha shifts uncomfortably. Dolores, families help each other. They do, I agree. But families also show respect. Families don't plan to discard the person funding their comfort. That's not fair, Jamal says. We never said discard. You said better this way, I replied. Better for everyone but me. The room feels smaller now, the walls pressing in as old assumptions crumble. Jamal's eyes fill with tears, and for a moment, I feel the familiar tug to soften, to comfort. I resist it gently. I have made changes, I tell them. To my accounts. To my plans. Jamal looks up sharply. What kind of changes? The kind that ensures my future isn't dependent on promises, I say. Kesha straightens. What does that mean? It means I will not be giving you the $3,000, I say. And it means there will be no more financial help going forward. The words hang in the air like a verdict. Jamal's reaction is immediate. Mama, you can't just. I can, I interrupt. And I have. His frustration flashes openly now. We're your family. And I am not your bank, I reply. Kesha's voice cools. So what happens now? Now, I say, you figure out your move without my money. And I figure out my life without being treated like an afterthought. Jamal stands abruptly, pacing the room. You're punishing us. I'm protecting myself, I correct. He stops pacing and looks at me, really looks at me, as if seeing a stranger. You've changed. Yes, I say. I have. The admission feels powerful, liberating. After a long moment, Jamal slumps back onto the sofa. We can fix this, he says quietly. You can still move in with us. I shake my head. No. Why not? Because I don't want to live somewhere I have to beg to belong. Kesha opens her mouth, then closes it. There is nothing left for her to say. I think you should go now, I tell them. Jamal looks stunned. You're kicking us out. I'm asking you to leave, I say. There's a difference. They stand slowly. Jamal hesitates at the door, his hand on the knob. I never meant to hurt you. I believe that, I say. But intent doesn't erase impact. They leave without another word. The door closes, and the silence rushes back in. My knees feel weak, but my spine feels stronger than ever. I sit down slowly, breathing through the aftershock. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in weeks. The days that follow are quieter. Jamal calls less. When he does, his tone is cautious, almost respectful. I answer when I want to. I end calls when I need to. Each boundary feels awkward at first, then natural. I met with the attorney again. We talk through options, protections, contingencies. I listen carefully, asking questions I never thought I'd need to ask. The process is sobering, but it is also empowering. I am no longer planning for a future defined by one person's goodwill. One afternoon, I took a long walk through the park. I sit on a bench beneath a tree whose leaves are just beginning to turn. I watch children play, elderly couples stroll hand in hand, people living lives that belong to them. I realize then that I am grieving. Not just the betrayal, but the version of motherhood I thought I had. The belief that unconditional giving would naturally lead to unconditional love. Grief, I am learning, does not mean weakness. It means honesty. That evening, I called my friend Leonita. We talk about small things at first, then deeper ones. She listens without judgment. When I hang up, I feel lighter. I am alone, but I am not lonely. And for the first time, that feels like a choice. The weeks that follow are quieter than any I can remember, but the quiet is not empty. It is full. Full of small choices, deliberate pauses, and moments that once would have been swallowed by obligation. I wake when my body tells me to, not when my phone rings. I eat when I'm hungry. I go outside simply because the weather invites me to. These are ordinary freedoms, yet they feel revolutionary. Jamal keeps his distance. When he calls, it is no longer with urgency or entitlement, but with caution, as if approaching a skittish animal he once assumed would always come when summoned. Our conversations are brief, polite, careful. He tells me the move was delayed. That money was tighter than he expected. He never asks directly for help again, but the absence of the request hangs between us like an unspoken accusation. Kesha does not call at all. I notice the difference immediately. There is no sudden warmth, no renewed effort to include me. Their concern had never been about reconciliation. It had been about access. And now that access is restricted, their interest fades. That truth hurts more than I expect, but it no longer surprises me. I return to the lawyer's office on a Tuesday morning, dressed neatly, carrying my folder of documents under my arm. Attorney Carter greets me with the same calm professionalism as before, but this time I feel steadier in his presence. Less like a woman reacting to crisis and more like someone shaping her future. We go through the draft of my revised will together. Some portions are unchanged. Others are radically different. Jamal remains a beneficiary, but no longer the sole one. Portions of my estate are allocated to organizations that support older women, legal aid services, and community programs I never previously considered. Reading it aloud feels strange, like hearing my life story rewritten by a wiser version of myself. There's also the option of setting conditions, Attorney Carter reminds me gently. I think of Jamal's promises, of how easily words had replaced actions. No, I say after a moment. I don't want to force love through paperwork. He nods. That's understandable. When I sign the revised documents, my hand does not shake. The pen glides smoothly across the paper, and with every stroke, something inside me settles. This is not revenge. It is responsibility. I leave the office feeling lighter, as if I've put down a burden I didn't realize I was still carrying. That afternoon, I treat myself to lunch again, this time at a small cafe near the park. I sit by the window and order soup and bread, nothing extravagant, but enough. Enough is becoming my favorite word. Enough money. Enough effort. Enough silence when silence serves me. Enough speaking when my voice matters. I watch a woman about my age laugh with a group of friends at a nearby table. Their laughter is easy, unguarded. I wonder how many years it's been since I laughed like that without worrying about someone else's needs. The thought does not make me sad. It makes me curious. I start saying yes to invitations I once declined out of habit. Coffee with Leonita. A book club meeting at the community center. A free lecture at the library. None of these things change my life dramatically, but together they create something new. A rhythm that belongs to me. One afternoon, as I'm sorting through old photographs, my phone rings. Jamal's name appears on the screen. I consider letting it go to voicemail, then answer. "Mama," he says. His voice sounds tired. "I just wanted to check in." "I'm fine," I tell him. "How are you?" There is a pause. "Stressed," he admits. "But managing." I hear the humility in his tone, the absence of expectation. It's new. "That's good," I say honestly. "I've been thinking about what you said," he continues. "About respect." I say nothing, letting him fill the silence. "I didn't realize how much I was taking for granted," he says quietly. The words matter, but I know better now than to mistake them for change. "Awareness is a start," I reply. "What you do with it is up to you." He agrees, and we end the call without promises or demands. It feels healthier than any conversation we've had in years. That evening, I stand by the window as the sun sets, casting long shadows across the living room. I think about the woman I was when this story began. The woman who believed endurance was the same as love. The woman who equated sacrifice with worth. I feel tenderness for her now, not judgment. Change does not arrive all at once. It arrives in layers. In moments of discomfort followed by clarity. In decisions that feel wrong at first because they break old patterns. I am learning to sit with discomfort without rushing to fix it. One morning, I receive a letter from the bank confirming the separation of my accounts. The language is formal, the tone neutral. To me, it feels celebratory. Proof that boundaries are not abstract ideas, but concrete actions. I pin the letter to the bulletin board above my desk, not as a reminder of mistrust, but as a reminder of self-respect. The following weekend, Leonita and I walk through the park together, the air crisp with early autumn. We talk about books, about aging, about fears we never voiced when we were younger because we were too busy surviving. "You seem lighter," she tells me. "I am," I say. "I finally stopped carrying things that weren't mine." She smiles. "That takes courage." I think of Jamal again. Of the boy he was. Of the man he became. Of the distance between us that may never fully close. The thought no longer terrifies me. Love does not require proximity. Sometimes it requires space. That night, as I prepared for bed, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I see lines, silver hair, tired eyes, but also something else. Strength. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that comes from knowing you will be okay, even if others are not. I turn off the light and lie down, breathing evenly. Tomorrow will come whether I worry about it or not. And for the first time in a long time, that feels perfectly fine. The season turns without asking permission. Leaves loosen from their branches and scatter across the sidewalks, and I find myself watching them from my window with a sense of kinship. Letting go is not dramatic. It is gradual. It happens when you stop clenching your hands and allow gravity to do its work. Jamal does not come by again for a while. Weeks pass. Then a month. The silence between us is different from before. It is not neglect disguised as busyness. It is a distance born of uncertainty. He does not know who I am anymore, and I am still discovering that myself. When he finally does visit, he comes alone. I hear the knock and know it is him before I open the door. Something in the rhythm has changed. Less demand. More hesitation. I open it slowly and step back to let him in without ceremony. He looks around the apartment as if seeing it for the first time. The familiar furniture. The framed photos. The quiet order of a life that has always existed independently of him, even when he forgot that. "You look well," he says. "So do you," I reply, and it's true. He looks older. Less certain. More human. We sit at the table where so many conversations have happened, most of them one-sided. He folds his hands together, then unfolds them. "I wanted to apologize," he says. "Not just for the money. For how I treated you." I study his face, searching for urgency, for an agenda. I found none. Only discomfort. Only accountability struggling to take shape. "I didn't realize how much you were giving up," he continues. "I didn't want to see it. It was easier not to." "Yes," I say. "It was." He nods, accepting the truth without defense. That alone tells me something has shifted. "I'm not here to ask for anything," he adds quickly. "I know you probably don't believe that, but I needed to say it." "I believe you," I say. And I do. Not because I trust blindly, but because I am no longer afraid to be wrong. We talked quietly for a while. About his work. About the kids. About the house. He mentions his mother-in-law living with them now, and there is no bitterness in his voice. Only fact. I listen without resentment. That chapter has already closed. When he stands to leave, he hesitates, then leans in and hugs me. The embrace is different this time. Not possessive. Not performative. Just be careful. "Thank you for teaching me something I should have learned a long time ago," he says. "You're welcome," I replied. "Just remember it." After he leaves, I sit for a long time at the table, not replaying the conversation, not searching for hidden meanings. I let it be what it was. A moment. Nothing more. Nothing less. Life settles into a new rhythm after that. Jamal calls occasionally. Sometimes we meet for coffee. Sometimes weeks pass without contact. The balance no longer frightens me. Relationships do not have to be constant to be real. I volunteer once a week at a community center now, helping other older women navigate paperwork, budgets, and housing applications. I see myself in many of them. Women who gave everything without question and are only now learning how to ask it back from themselves. I never tell my whole story. I don't need to. Understanding passes quietly between us. One afternoon, while sorting donated clothes, a woman thanked me for my patience. The word catches me off guard. I realize how often patience was demanded of me and how rarely it was acknowledged. I smile and tell her she's welcome. At home, I reorganized my apartment. Not out of necessity, but intention. I give away things I kept out of obligation. I rearrange furniture so light fills the room differently. I hang a mirror in the hallway where I can see myself clearly as I come and go. I like the woman looking back at me. On my birthday, I take myself out to dinner. No explanations. No guilt. Just a celebration. I toast quietly to another year lived honestly. Jamal sends a card. It's simple. Thoughtful. Enough. As winter approaches, I realize something important. I am no longer measuring my worth by usefulness. I am measuring it by peace. Peace is waking up without dread. Peace is saying no without apology. Peace is knowing that love does not require self-erasure. I think about the house sometimes. The one I helped buy but will never live in. The ache has softened. It is no longer a wound. It is a reminder. A marker of the moment I chose myself. One evening, as snow begins to fall, I sit by the window with a book and a cup of tea. The world outside is quiet, wrapped in white. Inside, I feel steady. I am not alone in the way I once feared. I am simply not entangled. That difference has given me my life back. I close the book, turn off the lamp, and let the silence settle around me. Not heavy, not hollow, but full of the future I finally allowed myself to claim. And for the first time in a very long time, I rest without regret.